am just a lawyer, very in love with geothermal. Since the very first moment that I joined the ministry, I started to be part of this team that was building the first regulatory framework for power generation from geothermal here in Colombia. We traveled to the south of the country to a geothermal area called Puracé. So there's a volcano there. Right now it's still having volcanic activity. We traveled there and we had the very first official dialogue between indigenous communities and the state around geothermal. They live around a volcano, so that was super important. I had the opportunity to listen to them and to explain to them from the legal point of view what were the rules and how is this model and what is allowed to the state to do.
Welcome to Geothermal Unleashed, the podcast where we dive into the frontier of geothermal energy and its role in the global energy transition. I'm Elizabeth Cambry with the Valorec New Energies team, and I am here to help spotlight the innovators, technologies, and stories that are driving geothermal forward. Today, I'm excited to welcome María Cristina Higuera Cardoza, who is joining the podcast from Bogota, Colombia. María is the founder and director of the Geothermal Cluster of Colombia. Thank you so much for joining me today. Why don't we get things kicked off by having you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your transition into the geothermal space?
Well, first of all, thank you to you, Elizabeth, for this invitation. I'm very, very glad to be here in this great podcast of Geothermal Unleashed. So thank you for that. And yeah, so I'm María Cristina. I'm a lawyer focused on the regulations in the energy sector and right now focus on geothermal. And so I like to start by telling you that I joined the Ministry of Mines and Energy in Colombia from the beginning of 2021. And I spent there 3 years working in hydrocarbons, but also in as we call it here now, it's the new energies. So in 2023, I left the ministry, but I kept focusing my work in geothermal. So since the very first moment that I joined the ministry, I started to be part of this team that was building the first regulatory framework for power generation from geothermal here in Colombia. That was a great opportunity to learn and to fall in love with this resource. So we did the whole process, and team we delivered these regulations between July and August of 2022. And then I had the opportunity to lead the first implementation phase of those rules that I was part of the people who wrote them. So it was challenging, implementing. One thing is when you are creating and building these rules, and other thing is when you are implementing those rules. But it was fascinating, and yeah. So for me, it was not exactly a transition because I've been in the energy sector, electrical energy, renewables, hydrocarbons, so yeah, oil and gas and hydrogen and geothermal. I've been in this sector from many years ago, since I started to be a lawyer formally, 12 years ago. Um, but So for me, it was more than the transition was focusing in one specific resource, that is geothermal. So in 2024, I had the opportunity to be in The Hague in the first Global Impact Summit organized by the International Geothermal Summit and Geothermal Association. And that was a pivotal moment for me to realize all the incredible potential that Colombia had as a country to keep developing new energies, but also within the climate change framework. And so that's me. So I like to say that I'm just a lawyer, very in love with geothermal.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so before I talk, I'm going to ask you to walk us through your process of what it was like creating the geothermal regulatory framework in Colombia. But before I go there, I want to understand what geothermal potential in Colombia is. Can you talk a little bit about the potential?
Sure. So this is a very interesting point because Colombia has an official number, like an official studies from our Geological National Service, and it is 1.2 gigawatts, so 1,172 megawatts.
Okay.
But those estimations are were taken from hydrothermal surface manifestations. But now we know from some technical experts that Colombia can have. So Colombia is one of the countries that are part of this Pacific Ring of Fire. And so now the technical experts consider that the major potential of Colombia could be in the line, something called blind resources. So we share those resources that don't have surface manifestation like hydrothermal manifestations. So I do believe in this, and as a country, we need to keep moving forward in the researching this resource in our country, and that is one thing that we are working, and we want to work even in a wider in a with a wider impact with the national entities, like keep this developing the researchers in Colombia of our potential.
So, who are the companies that are developing geothermal in Colombia? Have they drilled any wells yet?
We're working in this path. So key players, I would say here that in Colombia could be two companies that are focused on that they do oil and gas. They are from the oil and gas industry, so Parex and Ecopetrol. And the other one is an electrical energy company, which is called like we call it Czech. So they are, I would say, like the main stakeholders from the company's vision. And but there are other many solicitations that some other important companies uh, have yeah apply they have presented these applications for geothermal permits before the Ministry of Mines and Energy, and they are waiting to be granted with the geothermal permits to develop some projects. So there are some important companies like Gihus Group. They have been doing very important things here in geothermal in Colombia for some years from since some years ago. Yeah, so a part of them, so now the stakeholders, I'd say, also from the public um, space, we have like national entities, part of our National Geological Service. There is the Ministry of Mines and Energy. They are so from the regulations and actually from the law, this ministry is the current and official administrator of the geothermal register that was created by law. So they have the power and also an obligation to receive these solicitations, these applications for geothermal permits for exploration and then for exploitation, um, and to check them, to evaluate these solicitations, and to decide if these solicitations comply or no with the regulatory framework. And so, if they comply, they will have to deliver a permit, or they will have to deny it if they don't. That's I I will talk you about this
Yeah.
regulatory model. But yeah, so I would say the ministry and also those companies. The other important actors are the environmental authorities and of course the communities, because in Colombia at the end of the day, uh, projects are feasible when communities around the project, they are fine and with those projects. When you have a green flag from communities, then you can go and develop your project. So of course, they're important, and that is another thing that we are working, and we want to keep working in Colombia from the cluster with communities in these areas.
I love it. Okay, so let's back up now and talk about some of the work that you've done within the regulatory framework for geothermal. So I assume a portion of that is related to just the permitting process. Can you walk through some of the key things that the legal framework touched and the process that you experienced to get them implemented, and what were the biggest obstacles, hurdles?
So I love being a regulatory lawyer, because building a regulatory framework and delivering it, that is like it is one of the most exciting and challenging process that you can know about, because so one part is writing these resolutions. And for example, when we did this in the ministry, we had the support at that moment from the Inter-American Development Bank. The IDB hired an international consultancy, like experts on geothermal, to support the ministry. So we work with this team, Geocare from Mexico, with the ministry's team. We worked together to write these resolutions, and then the process. So you start to build it. So to write, to have it implies knowledge from all. It's an intersection of different backgrounds that you need: economics, technical, of course, law. And then with these documents, you have to start another important part of the process, that is go and work before before with and before other national authorities. Because, for example, there is a superintendency that have to take care of other markets' rights and citizens' rights, you know? So you have to demonstrate to the other entities, and even, for example, here, the Ministry of Environmental Affairs, you have to demonstrate to them that what you are regulating, it respects other revolutions, other laws, and other rights of other markets and citizens and other authorities. So you have to work with them and to demonstrate that you are respecting, observing, and respecting those other rules. And then if everything go, and of course that your norm is like that, your revolution is uh, constitutional.
Right.
Then when you have when you have completed that process, then you can deliver in these revolutions and these rules, and they start to be enforced. And for example, something that we did very well in this process was creating one transition regime. So because in Colombia, we already had a couple of important projects that have already done important things around their projects that we had to respect. So we created this transition regime, and thanks to this, Colombia, through the Ministry of Mines and Energy, granted the first four geothermal projects. So three from co-production, like own co-production. So one Ecopetrol, two Ecopetrol and one Parex, and the other one for high enthalpy, so power generation, it was the one to check. And now what happened in 2025 was that finally the ministry granted another permit for exploration. This is for exploration, and this one for Ecopetrol too on 2025. The ministry granted exploration permit, geothermal permit for an area at the south of the country. So yeah, that's pretty excited. I love it. I know how to do that, and it's super challenging because there's also a part where you in the process where you go to public consultancy, so you publish these projects, so everybody, like the stakeholders, but also citizens and other authorities, even they can review this project and do all the comments and observations that they have to do. And that is super important because that way you can see if you are going through like you're focused on a right path, or you have to change the direction of the model that you are creating. And right now, for example, from the Geothermal Cluster of Colombia, that is one of our most important missions, to work together, even if it's just through the consultancy period of a project, working on letting know to the authorities what we need, and if what we need, like companies, is matching what they are thinking, they are projecting. But that is super important because one thing is being the authority and being sitting in your desk thinking about how it should be from the state's view, from the national government view, and the other thing is being here in the side of the board and trying to develop the project.
Yeah. Okay, so Colombia has volcanoes, and then you've got a lot of indigenous populations that live near these volcanoes where it's perfect for geothermal. Have you had a lot of interaction with indigenous populations about geothermal?
Well, I had one of the best experience for me working in geothermal. By the way, I've been working in geothermal since 2021, so it's
Okay.
already 6 years, 5 years. So one of the best experience I've had is like working on, it was at the end of me being part of the minister's team, because it was like the end of November of 2023. We travel a team with the ministry and the geological service. We travel to the south of the country to a geothermal area called Puracé. So there's a volcano there that right now is still having activity, important volcanic activity. We know that it is not going to explode, but it's having volcanic activity. So we traveled there, and we had what I say is, it was like the very first official dialogue between indigenous communities and the state around geothermal, because this is, of course, it's a resource where they live around, so they live around a volcano, and they wanted to convene to the authority to talk about what their what their expectations were. So that was super important. I had the opportunity to listen to them and to explain to them from the legal point of view what were the rules and how is this model, and what is like what is allowed to the state to do, and what the government has to respect and everything. And so it was super important. And right now, for example, from the geothermal cluster, I, we have formulated a project to work with rural women, especially, and of course, rural women includes indigenous communities, women from indigenous communities, and just rural women around these geothermal areas of Colombia. And I think that from the projects that we have in the cluster, that is the one that I love the most. But it's
I love to
thinking
hear.
it's like we are raising our hands to get the economical resources to implement this project, because the projects that we have are formulated thinking about the challenges and the hurdles that uh, a little bit like has been holding back the geothermal development here in Colombia. So one of those challenges are communities. And I do believe, and I do dream about this, is that all people need to know what is geothermal power generation energy. What can you do with this resource that is in your area? How is this going to work? And also being very honest, like being truthful around how does a power generation project works, for example, because I believe, and this is very important for me as a lawyer who has worked for the state, but now from the private and companies view, so
Yeah,
people to do not create false expectations to the communities. So being like always talking with the truth is super important, and we want to work in the territory.
I love it. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the geothermal cluster of Colombia. How do people work with you? What are some of the things that you are working on right now?
So it's I founded the cluster in January of 2025. And this happened on the 3rd of January of 2025. And so nobody in Colombia is doing a thing like this in January, because we're Colombians, and for us like something around from the half of December to the half of January is like a national holiday.
Yeah,
We're focused on Christmas season.
yeah,
So
yeah.
nobody's doing that thing like this the 3rd of January, but I did it. So we have already completed our first year. It has been an incredible path, like walking through all these challenges. And even though we are a young organization, we have a team with very like great professionals that they do believe in this as much as I do believe. And so the cluster, I realized from this experience that I told you about in The Hague and everything, and when I left the ministry, I realized that we have an incredible untapped potential that needs to be like really explored and explored, not only because all the good things that geothermal power generation project can bring into territories, but also because we need geothermal in terms of climate change. Colombia has international compromises around um, the gas, greenhouses emission and everything. So we have to comply with that. And geothermal is a
Yeah.
very clean energy and everything, but also because we have this natural feminine that is called like phenomenon del niño, like boys phenomenon. It's a natural phenomenon that is our dry season, and so our electrical system um, stays in a stress situation when it comes. So geothermal has all the good to offer. So it's 24 hours, no weather conditions, no hour of the day and everything. So we do believe in this. And right now we are working on bringing together the companies here. So all the companies, not only the geothermal developers, but also all those companies, for example, oil and gas companies that are seeing in geothermal a new window, a new opportunity to new businesses. So that is very important. And yes, that so those companies are from oil and gas, but also from the electrical energy sector here in Colombia. And so that is one step. I was telling you that I realized that there was a missing part or a missing actor there in this ecosystem to consolidate it
Yeah.
as a guild, as a trade association, and as an industry here in Colombia. And that was a business mission, a business vision,
Yeah.
like because companies are who are trying to develop like really deep projects that are only through projects we are going to put megas in from geothermal in our electrical grid, national grid. So that is so important. And now, a part of being an actor as a unified that acts as a unified voice for companies to talk with authorities about regulations and necessities and what is happening and what we need as a country to have like real generation from geothermal. That is very important. But also we want to start to integrate as a cluster. That is how a cluster works. To integrate also authorities, communities, and also the universities, like the academia. We want to integrate this to strengthen the power that geothermal can have, and finally, to be able to say that we are really developing geothermal in Colombia. And you asked me who were the key players, but also drilling. So
Yeah.
we have officially we have as a country one exploration hole of geothermal, a geothermal hole,
Yeah.
and it is like it was made from with Czech made this like many years ago. But now I think that so this is the most advanced project in Colombia, and I believe that they will be able to start to drill soon,
Okay.
hopefully this year. And I also believe that from the cluster we want to convene the authorities and to do all what is possible so the ministry, as the administrator of this geothermal register, really, really start to deliver way to grant more geothermal projects.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, I love the work that you're doing. We're about out of time, and I've got one more question for you today. I want to know, what advice would you give to young professionals who are interested in entering the geothermal space, especially women? What would you tell them?
Okay, so geothermal is fascinating. So I'm sure if they have an interest, just keep going from your shoes. Be persistent on to achieve whatever you want in the geothermal here, field. So you're very welcome to this field, to this war and to this ecosystem of geothermal energy. Because I'm gonna tell you something that you already know. Actually, as Elizabeth, you
Okay.
already know this, but for those who are listening to this, so you know that climate change and energy demand is like all about now. So, for example, geothermal has all the opportunities to supply that demand from, for example, AI. Like I find fascinating the intersection between AI and geothermal energy. Uh, and this energy is the one who is called to supply that demand of the data centers. And so there's a lot of opportunities if you like climate change, if you like energy, if you like geologies now about all the new advances on enhanced geothermal systems, like what Fairbo is doing out there and everything is super exciting. And so geothermal has a present, it has a future. And you're very welcome here to this field. Of course, we need geologists, uh, people with economic backgrounds, and also law, like me. Like
Yeah.
my heart is a It's like a geologist's heart.
Yeah, that's so
Because
funny.
yeah, I love my background, like being a regulatory lawyer and everything, but
Yeah.
also I love the knowledge from the geologist field.
Yeah.
So if you like geothermal, just you're very welcome to this energy, to this resource, and keep going. Be persistent on your goals and don't give up.
Thank you. Maria, I love your energy. I love what you're doing. Keep doing it. So thank you for joining me today. And thank you to all of our listeners for joining us on this episode of Geothermal Unleashed. I hope today's conversation has offered fresh insights and sparked new ideas about the future of geothermal energy. As we continue to navigate the energy transition, it's clear that geothermal has a powerful role to play, one that's only just beginning to be fully realized. Until next time, keep challenging assumptions, exploring new frontiers, and working together to unlock the full potential of geothermal energy. Thank you.